them in as they come in. But yeah, for the moment, I'm just going to start and say hello, everyone. My name is Albert. I am the education manager here at the Theodore Payne Foundation for Wildflowers and Native Plants. And I'd like to see just show of hands, who's heard of our foundation? Who's been here before? Lovely, lovely
Oh,
fan. Yeah. So yeah, we're excited to have you here because, as you know, living in here in Southern California, we know that drought is an ongoing situation that happens here. So it's really wonderful to partner with our friends from bewaterwise.com, and they are able to elaborate more on this awesome presentation to help talk about how landscaping and green spaces can help with our drought, right? So we will present you soon with all these people, but first I wanted to take some time to make a land acknowledgement. And so here, the Theodore Payne Foundation acknowledges that it sits on the traditional village of Wikonga, the ancestral home of the Wikombitam, who are now known as the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians. We acknowledge our neighbors also, which are the Tongva, the Chumash, Tataviam, Kitanamak, and the Serrano, the original stewards of what is now Los Angeles County. We are committed to uplifting the names of these lands and community members from over 200 California First Nations who reside alongside us and honor their traditional ecological knowledge. And that is very pertinent to what we're talking about here, because yes, we do draw upon the original stewards of this land who very much knew how to adapt to the different intricacies and nuances of the climate that we live in. And as such, they provided lots of knowledge that we are happy to take that and move forward with all our dealings with providing natural habitats and coexisting in a sustainable way, right? Us humans can still live side by side with nature. And this is a wonderful presentation to be able to get us in that step forward. So thanks for joining us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you now to my colleague. She is our interim CEO here at the Theodore Payne Foundation for Wildflowers and Native Plants, Katie Tilford.
hi guys, I'm Katie, and that's right, I'm interim executive director right now at Theodore Payne Foundation, and so glad for you guys to be joining us. I don't know if anyone here watched our presentation with Krista 2 years ago, but that is kind of what we're revisiting. We want to teach you guys about the rebates. Yes, you can get paid to take out your lawn, plant California native or other drought tolerant plants and trees. And there's just so many benefits that come with that. And yeah, we want to set you guys up for success with those programs. So thanks so much, Krista and Teresa, for being here. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions, please do put them in the chat. Teresa is going to be answering some of the questions as we go. And if your question doesn't get answered right away, we do see it. We're just saving some for the end for Krista to answer. So please go ahead and ask, and it might get answered throughout the presentation, or it might get answered at the end. And a few words on Theodore Payne Foundation. If you're unfamiliar with us, we have been in Los Angeles and Sun Valley specifically since 1960. And our mission since then has always been to inspire and educate Southern Californians about the beauty and ecological benefits of California native plants. So facing all of our many crises of biodiversity loss, habitat loss, drought, wildfire, all these big scary things going on, we actually have the answers right in front of us. And we look to these plants that form the foundation of healthy ecosystems, and they're already adapted to live here. So it's an amazing solution to a lot of problems going on. And Krista specifically is here today to talk to us about saving water and getting some rebates to do that. So Albert, would you like to introduce our
I would love that honor. So we also have another colleague from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Her name is Teresa Robertson. You may see her little window there, but yeah, you're welcome to throw questions in the chat throughout this presentation and this webinar. Any of us, including Teresa, will be able to try to chime in and field them. But the woman of the hour is, of course, Krista Guerrero. So thank you so much for joining us, Krista. And just to give you guys a little insight into her background, she's a Southern California native who has over 20 years of experience in the drinking water industry. She holds a bachelor's in natural resources from Cornell University and a master's in environmental engineering from the University of Florida. She has worked on a range of issues, including source water protection, stormwater management, water efficiency, water quality, water resource, and management. As you can see, she loves water. So she's perfectly suited for this webinar. She specializes in outdoor conservation and water policy and currently manages several outdoor efficiency programs for the Metropolitan Water District, while also assisting in the development of state and federal water regulations and legislation. So with that, let's welcome Krista.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today. I'm very excited for our conversation and the questions that are going to come through the chat so we can talk about all things native plants and drought and conservation. And I can't wait for this today. So thank you for having me back. Before we get into our great conversation, I do have a little presentation to go over, Metropolitan, who we are, what we do offer, and just some good background information. So we'll start with that. Let me pull that up. Okay. Just get that ready. There we go. All right. So as you all know, today's topic is goodbye grass, right? So how can we save water with California friendly and native plant landscapes and have a beautiful Southern California landscape that meets all of these wonderful environmental conditions that we're trying to look for, not just saving water, but biodiversity and increased habitat and urban cooling and all the wonderful things that come along with being water efficient and having something other than a lawn in your front yard. So first, let's talk about who Metropolitan is. We are very big, but most people have never heard of us. We are the nation's largest wholesale water provider. So we provide water to Southern California, about 19 million people, 5,200 square miles. We cover parts or all of 6 counties. So from sort of the Ventura area down to Mexico, and then east to about the Riverside area as well. What I usually like to call the suburban and urban Southern California sort of fits in that framework. As a wholesale water provider, we're not the person you pay your water bill to when you're doing paying your water bill, but we are the entity that has provided that water to your water provider, who then provides it to you. It's a lot of dominoes to get the water to your faucet and to your hose. So we have what we call 26 member agencies. So these member agencies are our version of customers. These are the 26 water agencies that purchase water from us. And then, as I said, either turn around and sell it to a specific city or directly to you as a customer. We support a $1.6 trillion regional economy. And if we were a country, we'd be about the 11th largest country in the world. So that's always a good statistic that everyone goes, oh, really? I didn't realize how big and populous the Southern California area is, but that is the truth. We could be our own country. We have 2 main websites that we use for conservation. It can get a little confusing, but we try to keep it, down the line as much as we can for our rebate program. So as we go through, I'm going to talk a lot about our rebates and applying for them and how that works. To get that information and actually do that rebate process, you would go to SoCalWatersmart.com. That's our rebate website. It has the applications, it has all the terms and conditions, all the different rebates that we offer, and all the things that you would need in order to complete your projects. For supporting resources and water saving tips, gardening resources, videos, classes, everything else that sort of goes along with supporting our regional rebate program, that's on our bewaterwise.com website, which is a really wonderful website. It has, as I said, a lot of good outdoor and indoor tips and information that you can use for any sort of project on saving water. So as I said, we are a wholesaler, which means that we import the water to Southern California. And our main sources of imported water there are two. One is the State Water Project, and that's water that comes, as you can see, from the Northern Sierras, and it goes down through the Bay Delta and then down through the aqueducts into Southern California. Our other source of water is the Colorado River. So we are one of the rights holders on the Colorado River. And so that water, again, goes through the Colorado River Aqueduct and then into Southern California. We are one of the rights holders. So there are, of course, irrigation districts and agricultural entities that also have rights to that water as well. Our member agencies have a number of local supplies that they also use. So they have groundwater, recycled water, some have desalination plants, local projects. The city of Los Angeles has the Los Angeles Aqueduct, and of course, conservation itself, which is considered a supply. So water use in Southern California varies over time, and we have done great work in making sure that we use less water, even though we have more people in our service area than we used to in the past. And we are so grateful to everybody in Southern California for being a part of that change. As you can see, from 1985, we were using about a little over 200 gallons per person per day. And now back in 2022, which is our most recent complete data, they're down to 126 gallons per person per day. So as I said, more people. So you would think that we'd be using more water, but per person wise, we are using significantly less. And that is fully based on the efforts of people like you who care about saving water and living efficiently and making sure that we have enough water for the future. It's important to note, and this is where all of today's conversation comes in, that our data shows that up to 70% of household water use is outdoor water. So most of the water that we're using in our homes is being put on our lawns. And while there are many benefits to a lawn, particularly of children or pets that need to use it, or play spaces at parks and schools, obviously lawns do have their place. For a lot of people, it's just something that they look at. They only stand on it when they mow it. So those benefits are not really there. And that's a big use of water for something that we're not actually getting any functional use out of. So what are the challenges for us here in Southern California? We talk a lot about drought. We are not currently in a drought. We did most recently come out of a historic drought, the worst one that we've had on record. And I think it's important to note that climate change is going to keep making that happen. So we are continuing to see less and less snowpack. So there's less snow that comes down every winter. And the reason that we care so much about that is that this water that we use in the summer is not necessarily from rain, and it's in particular not from the water that comes in Southern California. We, of course, capture that as best that we can, but snowpack in Northern California and around the Colorado River, that's the water that melts off and then goes into our reservoirs and into our aqueducts. And that's the water that we use throughout the summer when everybody is watering lawns or swimming in their pools or running through the sprinklers and all the things that we need to use it for when it's very hot. And so having lower snowpack because of climate change is a real problem as we continue to move forward. We're also, of course, seeing more fire as a part of those wildfires that come as a part of climate change as well. And while that is catastrophic on its own, you need water to fight fire as well. So we want to make sure there's plenty of water available as we continue to try to protect people in their homes. We're also noticing, and I think everyone has seen this, these big atmospheric rivers. So what's an atmospheric river? Atmospheric river is what happened during our last wet winter when we were able to pull ourselves out of the drought. So it's these big changes in climate, these movements of clouds that come over our area and dump a lot of rain all at once. While that's a great thing for pulling us out of a drought, when it's not consistent, it's much more difficult to capture that water. Sometimes we can't capture all of it at once, but also we can't plan for it the way that we would have planned in the past because we don't know when those atmospheric rivers are coming and when they may be gone for several years at a time. Also, those atmospheric river events cause more flooding, as we've said before, more problems. So this change in variation due to climate change is a new type of of demand, and it's a new type of reality that we try to plan for. But we're used to planning for the old version of this, and climate change has changed that. So we are adapting with it. But as quickly as we can adapt, it's better if we have something in place long term so that we can continue to move forward. There's also the expectation that the dry years will likely get drier. We're going to see more frequent droughts, we're going to see longer droughts, and we're going to see much worse droughts. So what we would have considered a dry year in the past, significantly drier moving forward. We're expecting them to be longer, and that requires a lot of effort on all of our parts to make sure that we have enough water to get through those dry years. So what do we have is this need for conservation, not just because of climate change and all the points that I've made here, but you may or may not have seen that there are changes in regulations and legislation for water agencies moving forward that make conservation something that is a standard for every day, no matter what the climate is, no matter how much drought is going on or not, how much rain we're getting or not. And so it's becoming, as it says in the regulation, a California way of life. Conservation is a California way of life. And so the expectation is that rain or shine, we are all conserving water as much as possible. Now, you don't need to know all the gory details, but the water agencies will be restricted to the amount of water that they can use or provide to you in a given year. And the only way for them to do that is to try to encourage more conservation so that they can stay under that number and still provide all the demand that we need. And that's where all of you would come in, is helping with that. This is just a quick example of sort of that weather whiplash that we see due to climate change. So you can see the one picture, the dry picture, that's Lake Oroville, which is one of our reservoirs, in January of 2023. And you can see that was when we were in the midst of our historic drought. And then just a few months later in July, after that very wet winter, that atmospheric river that came through, it has rebounded considerably. Looks great on this end, but it also goes in reverse, right? So we have July of 2023. We could very easily be back in that drought, low water use amount that you're seeing in the January picture. And that will continue to bounce back and forth. And so managing for that weather whiplash is very important. And a big part of managing for that is making sure that we are being as efficient as possible. So the main program I'm here to talk about today is Metropolitan's turf replacement program. We're very proud of this program. It's the largest turf replacement program in the country. And it is not just about, let's take out grass because grass uses too much water and replace it with anything. We are really promoting conservation. We're promoting at the same time sustainability and environmental stewardship. So we're looking at what are the best ways to put in a landscape that creates its own little mini watershed and provides biodiversity, provides habitat, provides urban cooling, all of those wonderful benefits that come from these landscapes. And we want to incorporate that. We want to encourage that and make a more beautiful and sustainable Southern California. So we have 3 different types of incentives. There's rebates for residential properties, regular homeowners, commercial properties, and that can include, business parks, industrial warehouses, anything of that nature, and public agency customers. So we actually have a whole category just for schools, parks, city buildings, courthouses, things of that nature as well. The program is very successful. We've removed over 200 million square feet of grass since we started this program way back in 1990. And we've saved about 8 billion gallons of water per year just from this. So we want to keep seeing those numbers go up. So the program, as I said, is not just about saving water. There's a lot of things that we're trying to achieve. And to do that, there are 4 main pillars to the program requirements, 4 things that you need to meet. The first is we want to see efficient irrigation. If you take out your grass and replace it with something else, whether that be drought-tolerant plants, or even if that's drought-tolerant or native plants, if you don't change your irrigation, it's not likely that you're actually going to see any water savings. And of course, we really want to see that water savings. So we ask that you take out your spray irrigation and replace it with something that's more efficient. That could be rotary nozzles, it could be drip irrigation, it could be hand watering, All of those things will help us be more efficient and make sure that you don't want to overwater your plants, as we all know, but also saving a lot of water with your new landscape. Our next item is that there is a plant requirement. So there is a requirement of 3 plants per 100 square feet. So if we did the math and you had 1,000 square foot front yard, that'd be 30 plants. It's very simple. We don't want to get in the way of people's designs. So you can put those 30 plants anywhere in that project area, right? You can clump them all together, or whatever your heart desires, whatever looks great in front of your home. But we do require a certain minimum number of plants. And again, that's to achieve that urban cooling that we're looking for. It's also to achieve that biodiversity and that habitat creation that we're really hoping to see. Another item that we have to include is a stormwater feature. So this is our mini watershed that we're creating. When it does rain here in Southern California, we want to take advantage of that. And we want your landscapes to take advantage of that. So including a stormwater feature like a dry creek bed, or a swale, or a rain barrel will allow your property to capture that water and then put it directly onto the plants so that they can use that water and you don't have to irrigate, right? We're trying to get to that idea of supplemental irrigation, right? You only need to irrigate in the summer when it's hot. And what's the great thing about natives is even in the summer when it's really hot, a lot of them don't need a ton of water. Sometimes they're just like, you know what, leave me alone. I'm okay, I'm used to this. This is what I was built for. And so that's what we really like to see. But when it does rain, we want to capture that water as much as possible. And then the final item that we include is the idea of a permeable hardscape, and ideally mulch, because it's one of our favorite permeable hardscapes because it does absorb and hold water, like I said, when it rains or when you irrigate. We don't want to put in any concrete unless it's permeable concrete, permeable pavers. We want things where when it rains or when you irrigate, that water is going to go right down into the ground and get to those roots. Mulch is ideal because, as I said, it does retain water. However, if you are in a high fire zone, we understand that mulch is probably not the best choice. You want to protect your home. So any organic material that is permeable is allowed. We're really excited to announce that we've added a new tree rebate to our program. So this is not a separate program. It is part of the turf replacement program. And the tree has to be planted in your same project area. So if you are doing, your front yard and your backyard, if you're only doing your front yard, you can't plant the tree in your backyard and have it count. It does need to be within your project area. And it's a $100 rebate per tree planted with a max of 5 trees. So if you plant 1 tree, you get an extra $100. If you plant 5 trees, you get an extra $500. There are a couple requirements. It does have to be a minimum size of a 15-gallon tree. And we do require receipts so that we can verify the size and that you were the one that purchased the tree. So if you get a free tree through a tree giveaway, which I do know there are several programs like that, unfortunately, that would not qualify. We do allow edible fruit trees for residential projects. So if you're thinking of adding trees to your home, you can include fruit trees. If it's a commercial project, so if you're a property owner of a business and you're going to do this type of work, unfortunately, you can't include fruit trees for those. And as I said before, we do have a 3 plant per 100 square feet rule. And this tree that you add would count as 3 of those plants. So if you needed 30 plants and you plant a tree, now you only need 27 more plants. So it works out in your favor. For more information on that and some really great resources that I'll show you a little bit later, you can go to bewaterwise.com/trees. So what are our rebates amount? That's always the part people want to know, right? How much is it? Because these are expensive projects and we understand that. It's a big undertaking and a big investment, and we want to help as much as we can. Right now, our rebates are $3 a square foot, and that's the base Metropolitan rebate. So it's $3 a square foot. It's a maximum of 5,000 square feet for for residential projects and 50,000 square feet for commercial projects. However, these numbers do change over time. When we get additional grant funding, we will add that amount. So you could see residential or commercial or both going up to $4 for additional funding that we do receive. When that funding runs out, then we drop back down our base minimum rebate is $2. So when you see it higher, that's the time to jump on it and try to get that extra money towards your project. The best way to know what your rebate is at any given time is to go to estimate your rebate on our SoCal WaterSmart website. So if you go to our website and you're looking at the turf replacement program, you will see on the sidebar an estimate your rebate button. And the reason we have that, not just for our grant funding, but many of our local water agencies also add funding. So they will take our base rebate of $2 or $3, what we have right now, and they'll add money as well. In certain parts of our service area, the rebate itself is up to $5 or $6 a square foot currently. So if you want to know what it is in your area, go to that estimate your rebate button and click on it. It'll take you to a screen where you would put in your address and your water agency so that we can verify if they add any funding. And then just some of the details about your project. How many square feet is it? What are you trying to do? And then it will come back with a calculator and an estimate on, how much money you would get for your project. So I really encourage you start there, especially as you start planning your project and thinking about budget and what you want to do. Make sure that you have your idea of the right number. What I will caution you is don't do that today and then start your project in 6 months and expect that amount to be the same, right? So if you're ready to start, go ahead and check that and get your budget in line. But understand that as funding is available or exhausted, that number may change. So if you see a number you like and you said, yes, I can do it for that amount, or that's a great, that covers 50% of my cost or 40% of my cost, that's the time to jump in and get your project going. So how do you know if you're eligible for our program? Well, number one is to be in our service area, of course. There are many water agencies outside of metropolitan service area that do have their own turf programs, and I encourage you, if you are not within metropolitan service area, to look into those. They're all usually very similar to ours. And of course, your agency wants to see those same benefits. The customer has to submit the application. So if you are hiring a contractor or you are a contractor who's interested in learning more about the program, of course, we want you to participate, but the information has to be the customers. That's who we're going to contact. That's who we're going to communicate with, and they're ultimately the person who will receive the rebate check. However, as a contractor, they can be included as a contact so that they get the information, know when the deadline is, and all of that. This is a big one that gets a little confusing for people. You do have to have existing living turf grass. So if your grass is dead or it's dying or you have patches of grass and dirt, unfortunately, we can't have those projects in our program. We are ultimately trying to achieve water savings. So it's grass that is currently being irrigated that then is converted that's really going to give us the savings that we're looking for. And any bare dirt space, of course, is not allowed. The project size is a minimum of 250 square feet of turf, or if you are less than 250 square feet, if that's all the grass you have, we will take it. So it's either every piece of grass on your property or a minimum of 250 square feet. And this is an important distinction. Synthetic turf or artificial turf is not eligible for rebates. You cannot take out your grass and put in artificial turf and get a rebate for it. You're welcome to do that if that's what you'd like to do, but we do not provide a rebate for that. So what's the process? It's not like getting a rebate for a toilet or a clothes washer or anything like that, where you just purchase the product and send us the receipt, and then we send you the information. There is a little bit more to it. So the first thing that you have to do is actually reserve your rebate amount. Right. As I said, once we've locked you in on that reserved rebate amount, that means even if the funding changes, your amount does not change because we've reserved that for you. So you go online and you fill out our application. As part of that application, it's going to ask you for some photos of the project area so we can see that you do have living turf. It's going to ask you for a copy of your water bill so we can verify that you're in our service area. And it's going to ask you for a landscape plan. This does not need to be a complicated plan. It does not need to be done by a landscape architect or designer. However, of course, we welcome those because we know that those projects are going to be beautiful and they're going to be right, but you're welcome to do it yourself. We get a lot of DIY projects and many of those are just as beautiful and do great. So it's up to you. if you want to hire somebody or if you want to do it yourself. Again, it doesn't need to be complicated. You can draw it, freehand. You can do it on a computer. I have received some on napkins before. I mean, we will take it all as long as you know what you're doing and you can show us, these are my plants, these are where they're going. This is my stormwater feature and this is where it's going to go. Those are the things that we're looking for. An important thing to note also is no matter what you put on your landscape plan, you are not locked into that. So when we give you an approval to start your work, we're not approving your landscape plan. We just want to make sure that you've thought your project through. So at any point, if you want to change the plants you've chosen, you want to change your stormwater feature, all of that is completely fine. We're not going to hold you to anything in your landscape plan. You just do have to meet the program requirements at the end. For residential projects, we do have a certain number that do get an inspection before we approve them. There's usually just a random number that are selected for inspection. If it's a commercial project, so as I said, if you are a business owner, commercial property owner, those are mandatory inspections. So they get inspected, every single one of those gets inspected before we can approve you. And you'll get an email or contact from us saying, hey, we just need to inspect you, and we'll get you scheduled for that. After everything's been reviewed and approved, you'll get an approval to start your project. It's very, very, very important. I'm going to add 17 more varies. Very, very, very important that you do not start your project until you receive that approval. Do not take out your grass until you've gotten that approval email saying that you can start your project. We cannot approve you if the grass is already gone. And we cannot approve you if you've already started the work. We cannot approve you if you've already finished the work, right? So you can't send in your application and say, oh, I did it 6 months ago, but I didn't know that your program existed, so can I have the rebate now? Unfortunately, no. You do have to wait until we've approved you for that project. So once you've been approved, you get going, complete your project. You have 180 days to complete your project. If you need more time, please reach out to us. We'll try to be flexible with you, but we would really very much like to see it done in that 180-day period. And then when you're done, you would come back in and say, I'm done. Here, I'm ready to actually physically apply for my rebate check. And that's just a form that you fill out that lets us know that you're finished and tells us what you've changed, right? So if you said before that you were going to do a swale and you put in a dry creek bed, you're going to let us know. And then you're going to tell us, this is how much square footage I actually did. And we'll get that all scheduled for you. If you get selected for a random post-inspection or your commercial project and you have to do a mandatory post-inspection, that would come next. And then once all of that is reviewed and approved, we send you your check. So it's sort of a long process, but it can go very smoothly. And we've been doing this for a very long time. So if you have questions or problems at any point throughout it, we have chat features, we have emails, we have phone numbers. Somebody will be available to help you through that process. Some helpful tips when you're thinking about doing your project. There is only one stormwater feature that's required per project. So if you do your front yard and your backyard at the same time, you only need to put a stormwater feature in either your front yard or backyard. You don't have to put it in both. Same thing for commercial projects. We get a lot of homeowners associations, HOA properties, and they'll do multiple areas. They only have to do one per application, one stormwater feature. When you're thinking about your stormwater feature and, what do I want to put in? Do I want to put in a dry creek bed? Do I want to put in a swale or a rain barrel? It's really important to think about looking at your property and looking at the landscape area to determine what is the best feature. Do you have a natural grade on your property that lends itself to a dry creek bed? Do you have a lot of space to put in a swale or a rain garden? Do you have gutters all around your home that would lend themselves perfectly to a rain barrel, right? You don't want to make things harder on yourself. So let's look at the property and think about what fits here naturally. A very important point for us is we don't want you to get rid of your trees, right? So we love trees. Obviously, we have our tree rebate to try to add more trees, but we also want you to keep your existing trees. If you keep any tree that you keep in your project area will count as a plant. So again, you're doing 1,000 square feet, you need 30 plants, you have 5 trees, you leave those 5 trees in place, that's 5 plants, and now you're down to needing 25. We really, really don't want people to remove their trees, of course, unless they're diseased or there's some other issue. But as best as you can, keep those trees in place so we can keep getting those wonderful benefits. the application and the maximum square footage is per water meter. So in a home, usually there's only one water meter, so you get that 5,000 square foot maximum. For a commercial project or a school or park, there's usually multiple meters. And so at that point, you can apply for each meter and be able to do, instead of 50,000 square feet, if you had 2 meters, you can do 100,000 square feet. And so you get those additional benefits and not having to wait to do another project. And then most importantly is to group those plants by water needs, right? So when you are thinking about your design, put all your low water use plants together, your medium water use plants together. Don't mix them up. I was actually just helping an HOA the other day. They said, our plants are dying. We can't figure out why. And I said, well, let me see what your plants are. And they had mixed low and medium water use plants together. And I said, well, I don't know how much you're watering because I still need to see your irrigation schedule, but you're either drowning your low water use plants or you're starving your medium water use plant. And I can pretty much tell you that's the problem. And it was. So mixing them together will create a problem. You will see some plant die off from that. So make sure that you're keeping their plants with their close friends, the ones that need the same amount of water as they do. And the great thing about natives is when you know you've got natives, you can group them together and they'll be happy. So another program that I would really love to push is our free landscape residential survey program. It says landscape surveys. It's actually an indoor and outdoor survey. So for free, somebody will come to your home. They'll look at your indoor devices, your toilets, washing machines, dishwashers, and let you know, is anything leaking? Is anything out of date? Are there more efficient models? What are the rebates that are available to help you upgrade? And then let's do the same thing with your irrigation system. Again, leaks. How is it inefficient? How can we help you? Completely free of charge. And it's a great way to understand, what changes you can make in your home. We also have a large landscape a large landscape survey program for very large, over 1 acre residential properties or commercial properties as well. And that one is strictly outdoor, but it goes in depth through all the inefficiencies that you might have on site. And it's a really simple website to remember. That's waterefficiencysurvey.com. So if you go there, you can sign up. Very easy, as I said, completely free. And we'd love to have everybody get an idea of, how can they save more water in their home. We also have a number of water efficient landscaping classes available. These are both in person and online throughout our service area. And we have topics on everything related to outdoor landscaping that you might need. So obviously turf replacement itself and how to remove turf and what to replace it with, design, rainwater capture, how to program your irrigation controller, how to deal with issues with your drip irrigation. So if you have a problem outdoors, we have a class that will help you with it, including a new class on water budgeting, right? How do you keep your irrigation under a certain amount in a water budget? These are also free, and you can find them on bewaterwise.com. bewaterwise.com, as I said, is our resource website. It has a number of great resources that we have, including our California Friendly Maintenance Guide, which tells you once you have made your change in turf replacement to a California Friendly drought tolerant landscaping, how do you keep it alive? That's in this maintenance guidebook. We have the Waterwise Garden Book. If you are in the beginning stages of planning your turf replacement program, I highly encourage you to go onto our website and to get the Waterwise Garden Book. You can download it. It's a PDF version. You can also just view it online as well. And it will take you step by step through everything that you need to think about and know to do a turf replacement project. So it's a really handy guide to getting you through that project. And of course, as part of our new tree rebate, we have a top trees for your Waterwise garden list. These are our tree superstars. They provide all of the benefits I discussed before, and they are water efficient, drought tolerant. And so they are exactly what we want to see in Southern California. And a guide on how to care for your tree, how to plant and care for your tree, so that we know that we do get those benefits and you get those beautiful 10, 20, 30-year-old trees in your yard. And I just want to show you, just as a little bit of inspiration, some before and after photos from our turf replacement program. This one might look a little bare, but this is right after it was installed. So, you got to give it time to grow. You see these projects right when they're first put in and everything looks small and neat and tidy, but you know that eventually they're going to grow into these big, beautiful bushes. That tree is going to grow, provide a lot of shade for that home. It's going to be really wonderful. And as you can see, they've created a very beautiful dry creek bed that's going to be very useful for capturing that irrigation on site. This is an example of a fully grown landscape. So this one, as you can see, this is actually about 10 years of growth that you're looking at from when it first went in. So when you're thinking about size, particularly when you're doing your turf replacement project, understand that, that first picture that I showed you, everything started out very neat and tidy and small, and eventually it turns into something like this, where you have these beautiful lantana bushes and the agaves and the palo verde trees, and everything has grown and taken up its beautiful space. And this one is what I would call our in-between picture. So we have one where not exactly brand new planted, but recently planted, and it has about 6 months to a year of growth. And you can see that one growing in beautifully as well. This one, it looks like in my mind, it looked like a completely different home just from the way they've changed it between the lawn to the drought tolerant landscaping. A really beautiful facelift on this home. That's just a little preview of our new fall campaign. It is our Goodbye Grass campaign, talking about how everybody deserves better than a lawn that they don't use, and that doesn't provide that those beautiful colors, habitat, and that biodiversity that we all love to see. This is my information. If you have questions on anything I've shared today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And that's what I have for you today, but I'm very excited for our conversation and any questions that we have now.
Wow, Krista, that was so informative and so much to digest.
Yeah.
Thank you for going into so much detail, and I'd love to take some more questions in the chat if anyone has some. I wanted to go back over a couple things that you said. And number one, do not start until you get approval. I think we can't repeat that enough, because Metropolitan Water District needs to know what you guys are starting with. If you have already started and your grass is already gone, they have no way of knowing that there ever was grass there to begin with. So they need to have established that baseline of the turf that is getting removed, because there has to be a trade-off. It's a rebate, right? You are getting the rebate for giving something up. And yeah, that's so important. Let's just do a fun one. What's your favorite stormwater feature?
Ooh, that is a fun one. So my favorite stormwater feature is actually the vegetated swale, which is, a lot of times when people talk about rain gardens, rock gardens, swales, they sort of clump them all together as the same thing, and they're not quite. There are serious distinctions between each of them. Obviously, a rock garden has rock in it, but between a rain garden and a swale, there is a definite difference between the two of them, usually in plant selection, and how long the water is retained and the size of the depression. I have a vegetated swale in my front yard. The reason that I chose it is I actually loved building up the sides of the swale with those plants that like to sit in water and are comfortable in water, because you get beautiful color. I have some really wonderful yarrow that's sitting there. And I love watching my swale fill up when it does rain and watching that water slowly percolate into the ground. It's actually very entertaining for me. I take pictures every time it happens. I'm like, look, my swale's working.
It's so magical.
I love that. So that's a big one for me.
I have to agree. Like, it's nice to have a rain barrel if you have the gutters and you can do that, but having that swale or that dry riverbed really makes a little microclimate in your garden, where you're really seeing that you're recharging your local watershed with that. So thanks. And then we had a question from Alejandra about, okay, so let's break it down. If someone has grass that has dried up, is that eligible for the rebate if it looks dead?
So this is a tricky, this is a tricky one. We do get a lot of these questions, and it's a little hard. We almost have to look at them as a case by case basis. We have to see really how dried we're talking about.
Yeah.
The rebate is for living turf grass. So we are expecting it to be green, living
Okay.
turf grass. We do understand that in particular, we've had some pretty serious heat waves here in Southern California. I have patches of grass in my backyard that I keep for my dogs and my children so they can play on it. And even with the normal watering that I've always done, parts of it are brown because of how hot it's been. So we understand that, and we're willing to work with that and understand it. But if the entire grass area is dead or is dying and looks as if it has not been irrigated in quite some time, that would not be eligible.
Okay. Okay. So it depends how much time has passed.
Since we brought up the grass question, I had one that came up earlier, and I'm hoping you can elaborate a little bit, Krista. At the Theodore Payne Foundation, we have a wonderful class called Grass Morphology, and it talks about all the wonderful native California grasses that they're more like bunchy, right? They cluster. But that said, there are some that can be an alternative to lawns that can be mowed. And some people were asking questions about the rebate if it's not able to adapt to those particular native California grasses. So yeah, I'm hoping you can provide context.
Great question. We love native grasses. Let me just say that right off the bat. I have deer grass in my front yard that I love. And so we do love native grasses. Native grasses are allowed. However, we do not allow mowable grass. And the reason for that is the idea behind the program, besides saving water, is to necessitate a change in Southern California and really show people that beauty comes in something other than mowed turf grass, right? And so we want people to drive by your home and see that your property has something else and that it's just as beautiful and just as beneficial. And so if we're not able to show off that change because you've mowed down your native grass and it looks like regular turf grass, that really doesn't, that sort of defeats the purpose of the program. So if you are putting in the bunch grass, the long native grasses, the meadow grasses, absolutely, we encourage that. We love that. There are a number of other non-grass ground covers that also will give you that green square sort of lawn look that you want that are not grass. So any one of those is also perfectly acceptable in the program.
Great, thank you.
That's really important, I think, what you mentioned about changing perceptions of what is a beautiful garden. And that I think that's really cool that that's one of the goals of this program, not just to perpetuate more lawns. But there's nothing wrong with that if you have a little area that you want to keep a lawn, for your pet or for your kids or whatever. They're not saying that's illegal and you can't do that. They're just not going to give you money for that.
I like to call it shrink wrapping, right? So if you need grass, we're not saying take out the grass, but shrink wrap your grass down to the size that you actually, like I said, at my own home, I have grass in my backyard because I do have dogs and children that use it. But in my front yard, it was just a patch of grass in my front yard, and we don't need that anymore. So now I have a beautiful native pollinator garden instead, which I much prefer.
Amazing. Think you'll ever be on the garden tour?
I don't know. That would be great. I mean, I'd be honored. I can tell you right now, it's sleeping. My garden is sleeping because it's very hot.
Yeah. You should apply next year. That's great. Well, Chloe is asking, is there a master list of plants? Oops, I scrolled away, that are allowable.
So Metropolitan's program is a little bit unique in that we do not have a list of plants that you are allowed that we're saying you have to choose from. Some of our member agencies, for example, the city of Long Beach, if anyone's in that area, they run their own turf replacement program with financial support from us, and they do have a list of required plants or allowable plants. We do not. We want and encourage you to install natives, most of all, but also just other California-friendly, drought-tolerant plantings. The only rule is that you cannot install invasive plants. So if you go on the Cal IPC list and you see that plant listed, we will not allow that plant in your project area. We're trying to, of course, keep the invasives out of our area.
That's great. Really appreciate the no invasive plants rule. And it seems like a rule you wouldn't need to have, but there are so many invasive plants that are still sold in nurseries. So,
Yep,
don't feel bad if you have one and didn't know, but go do that research now. Look up the Cal IPC, and there's a lot of great alternatives. And I think some people might be kind of overwhelmed by not having a list, like, okay, someone just tell me what to plant and I'll do it. So I have a couple of recommendations. We have a list of easy native plants on our plant guides. I'll just share my screen really quick here. So if we go to theodorepayne.org and go to learn and then plant guides. This is a great place to get some beginner level information, getting started with native plants and easy native plants. These are like the workhorse, great, pretty foolproof plants that we recommend. So definitely check out that list. And then you can also check out on our online store. I put the link in the chat. But if you go to plants, you can filter by water needs and choose low water. And a bunch of options come up. And Krista had a really great point about not mixing your plants with different water needs. So if you have some existing plants that are kind of medium water, then you'll want to plant other things around there in that same hydro zone. If it's near the same drip emitters, or if you're hand watering that thing that has medium water needs, you'll want a plant with similar water needs next to that one. So yeah, definitely use that filtering tool. And then we also have a class called Right Plant, Right Place, where you can learn more about those sorts of principles. So yeah, there's a lot you can do yourself, and that's okay if it's overwhelming. We're here to help, and we want you to be successful.
And we also have plant guides on bewaterwise.com as well. Yeah. We have a top 50 plants and then our top 10, which are similar to your workhorse plants, plants that we've known are readily available in nurseries and do really well. And then a partner of both Theodore Payne and Metropolitan, obviously, is the California Native Plant Society and their CalScape website, which is wonderful and was just redone. So, also encourage you to look there.
Yes, great plug. So bewaterwise.com has so many resources and the answers to a lot of our questions we've been getting in the chat. I definitely recommend using the estimate your rebate tool. That is going to go ahead and answer so many questions about, you just put in your zip code and who you pay your water bill to, and it'll give you the amount per square foot, the total estimated rebate amount. And sometimes just seeing that number will be enough to give you the motivation that you need to go for this. I was doing this for a friend, and the estimate your rebate number was the number that they ended up getting. So you can trust it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's my point about once you go to estimate my rebate and you think, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to do this project, you do want to apply pretty soon after that. You don't want a lot of time to go by because that number can change. So you want to lock in that rebate amount when you see it.
Yeah, and the other thing is that alone, though, is not a promise that you'll get that. You do have to do the work. You've got to follow the terms and conditions, and just make sure you're following all the rules, 3 plants, for every
motor feature, permeable hardscape, the irrigation, all that.
Some other common questions that come up parkways are eligible, right?
Oh yes. Oh yes. We love when people do parkways.
Yeah.
If we're ever thinking about a place that really does not need spray irrigation, it's a parkway. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing frustrates me more than driving by somebody who's watering their parkway and it's just they're really just watering the street or the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So we would absolutely love and encourage everybody to do their parkway if they can.
Yeah, just make sure you follow any local
Mhm.
rules for your city. I think in LA, parkway plants have to be 2 feet tall or shorter. Can't have
Mhm.
anything spiny, no cacti or agave, even though you see a lot of agaves out there that
Yeah.
people are just doing anyway. But and leave room for a vehicle that's parked there to open their door. And make a little path. If you don't want people walking on your plants, just put a couple pavers or flagstones there or just a mulch trail. If you give people a path, they will use it.
Parkways are a great place for those alternative ground covers, so
Yeah.
native or not, Diamondia or anything along those lines where you don't really have to worry about height or spikes or anything because it just covers the whole parkway area.
Yes. And okay, we're starting to get some more technical planting questions here in the chat. So this could be any of us, but Pauline is saying, I've seen mature native gardens that tend to be dense and woody. Would the space underneath the crown of the plants harbor rodents? I wish I could find more examples of native plant designs with clean looks. This is a great question. It kind of comes back to plant selection as well as maintenance. There's not a one size fits all native plant garden. You can definitely do some plant designs with cleaner looks. And if you want kind of softer, less woody foliage, there's definitely some options for that. So I would recommend checking out some of the books in our bookstore about garden design. Check out the garden design series that we do and the bewaterwise.com plant design tool to kind of see what your different options are. And our native plant garden tour is a good way to go and see gardens in person,
Get
how people are
inspired.
actually using these plants. It's not till next spring, but I'll just do a quick
But
plug.
to dovetail from what you had mentioned,
Yeah.
we have this wonderful three-part garden design series that because we're seeing all the information here in terms of the rebate, but it's hard like we feel how do we get into this task that can seem daunting, right? Where do we even begin? So if you're ready to get the process rolling, we have a three-part garden design series with all of these concepts in mind, and it's up to your vision with all the different aesthetics that you want to play with, and it helps your project come alive, and it keeps all of these things in mind by being mindful of the rebate, drought tolerant plants, some that are fire resilient, things that will be cohesive with you want to have an entertainment, a space for entertaining, a space for your dogs, for your kids to play, right? It's okay to incorporate all those elements into this design. I'll drop the link for that particular class because guess what? It's planting season, and this October we're kicking off the class this Friday. So if you happen to be available, that's the first of the class if you want to join and get your project going. That's usually the scary part is the first step, right?
Yeah.
And I'll
But
just add,
yeah,
sorry,
go ahead, Krista.
Metropolitan also has a garden design class that
Yes.
you can attend as well that will go
And
through all
it's
of that.
free.
And if you are is just talking about starting that process, if you do want to hire somebody to do this work for you, you want to hire a contractor, on our bewaterwise.com website, we do have a list of certified contractors. These are people who've gone through our water efficient landscape dual certification program. So they have been trained in the installation, maintenance, and irrigation of drought tolerant landscaping. And so they're a great first resource if you're like, I don't know who to hire. I don't know if my gardener that I have now knows how to do this. You can take a look at the people on our website who have been trained specifically for this as well. And then just because I love my garden so much, I just want to point out, talking about clean looks, my garden actually doesn't have any of those wood bushes. It's grasses, it's ceanothus ground cover, it's yarrow, and it has a very nice clean look if that's kind of what you're looking for.
Well, let's also debunk that a little bit, because I think we kind of glossed over the whole rat thing. So while native plants do, serve as, they support wildlife, all sorts of wildlife.
Mhm.
I think rats kind of point to an issue of maybe there's a food source for them or some trash, or, they tend to go after
Mhm.
human evidence of human activity more than like a coffee berry or a toy on,
Yeah.
And so that's not really a unique to native plants thing. That's more of a, I don't know, that could be with any, any garden, any plants. It's kind
Absolutely.
of a maintenance and ongoing cleanliness sort of thing. But if you're planting native plants and supporting the ecosystem, that will include those good predators that might swoop down and eat the rats. And while we're on that topic, please don't use rat poison. That will move up the food chain
Public
and
service
harm,
announcement.
harm the predators, the owls and the bobcats and coyotes and mountain lions. We do not want those
Excellent point.
moving up the food chain. And I just dropped that link for bewaterwise.com to find the Well DCP certified landscape pros. So these people are going to be the experts on saving water. Thank you so much for that resource, Krista. And I think that's kind of wrapping up the questions. We had one person, I pulled up the lawn for my parkway and put down mulch. I did take before pictures. Would that suffice if I apply?
Unfortunately, as I said before, you do
Yeah.
have to apply before you do the work. We're
Yep.
just really we don't have any wiggle room on that requirement, unfortunately. So we can't make any exceptions for that. If you've already taken out your grass, you are no longer eligible, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, the timeline is really important because there's been, this program's been around for a while and there's so much funding available. People will try to take advantage of it. And you guys are great about, you got to be strict sometimes to make sure that those funds are being spent responsibly. So it's unfortunate if you've already started your project, but we're trying to get the word out so that more people can know about this and hopefully get these rebates done, get the turf grass out and get them replaced with native plants.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
And it's great that you've already taken out your lawn. If you have, you're probably already starting to see some of the benefits of that. So don't lament it too much. And how big could your parkway be anyway? I hope it's not too much of a loss.
Maybe if you haven't done your front yard or your backyard yet,
Find
there's still the
somewhere
opportunity
else.
there.
Definitely. And that's so exciting about the tree rebate, that's something new and really great because we definitely need more tree canopy. We need more shade and cooling. So that's really great to see coming from you guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah. I'm very excited about the tree rebate. It's been extremely popular. This is one of the most popular launches of a program that we've had in a very long time. So we're glad to see that everyone else in Southern California is just as excited about trees as we are. So
Oh, yeah.
And speaking about, plant lists, as I said, we have that top trees resource. It's a great list that we've compiled. It takes into account all sorts of things. So not just drought tolerant trees, but those co-benefits that we talked about, filtering air quality, cooling, and, trees that are good in fire zones. So they're less likely to catch on fire. We have them grouped by size, whether they're power line friendly. It's a really thorough resource to pick a tree.
I just put the link for bewaterwise.com in the chat in case you guys haven't checked it out yet. There's so much information on not just the rebates, but how-to videos, tips, fact sheets. Definitely take some time looking through that site. You're going to learn something new. I always learn something new when I look at it. And I thought of another question. This was something I wondered for a long time. even while I worked at Theodore Payne, when I was a native plant newbie, I heard about all this stormwater capture and swales. And I just thought, why do we care so much about capturing rain if it barely ever rains in LA? So I know the answer to that now. I want to let you answer because there might be some people here tonight that are thinking, what are we so obsessed with rain for? It's only going to rain, a couple days out of the year. What's the big deal?
But isn't that the point? I mean, if you live somewhere where it rained all the time, you really wouldn't be so obsessed with the rain and capturing it when you needed it, or capturing it when you can. It's precisely because we get so little rain here in Southern California that we get very excited when it does rain, and we want to capture that rain.
It's a precious resource.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely a precious resource. And not just that, but also trying to capture that stormwater runoff. Because it rains so little here in Southern California, we get a lot of buildup of pollutants and other things on our driveways, sidewalks, streets. And if we can capture that rain, that prevents that runoff and that polluted runoff that happens when it does rain from going into our sewer drains and out into the oceans and causing other problems down the line. So capturing that water on your site means it's not running off your site and causing pollution somewhere else.
That's great. So I'm thinking, even though our plants are drought tolerant, the thing that makes them drought tolerant is sucking up all the water they can when it's there and getting kind of recharged and saving up those resources to make it through the long spells without water.
Exactly. Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. And I know today was mostly about the turf rebates, but is there any device rebates that relate to sprinklers or smart controllers?
Yeah, we have great device rebates. We have our irrigation controller. So upgrading your controller to a smart controller, what we call a smart controller, which just means that it connects to Wi-Fi, which allows it to connect to local weather stations, and then to adapt your watering based on the upcoming weather. So if it sees that it's going to rain, then your irrigation won't come on. Or if it sees that it just rained, then your irrigation won't come on. You can also combine that with like a soil moisture sensor that we do have rebates for as well. So it'll actually use the moisture in your soil to see, oh, your plants need water now, or no, they don't. I have one. I can check it right now on my phone, and it will tell me what is the soil moisture level in my ground right now, and tell me, okay, well, we're going to water again in a week and a half because we think we're good until then, based on how much moisture is currently in your soil. Really, really great resource. And it saves you from having to do that irrigation scheduling change, from winter to spring to summer, where you have to keep changing it around and you're sort of guessing as okay, I think it's getting cooler. I guess I can drop down my watering now, but you're not 100% sure. It takes all that guesswork out of it, and we'll do it for you in a much more efficient way. So we have rebates for those. Also for what we call rotary nozzles or rotating nozzles. If you want a really simple way to save water in your landscape, even if you keep your grass, just changing out a traditional overhead spray nozzle to a more efficient rotary nozzle will save a significant amount of water. So we do have rebates for that. That's for anybody. Like I said, you don't have to be, doing turf replacement. You could be keeping your grass, and you can just go around and change out those nozzles and save a significant amount of water there as well. And then soil moisture sensors and things of that nature also. I will also plug our flow monitoring device rebate. So not exactly an outdoor device, but really helpful for outdoor landscape and indoor water use. So a flow monitoring device is just a little device that either goes on your water meter or on your water line, and it tracks how much water you use in your house and outside, depending on the product. So it can tell you, it sort of learns your habits, and you can see how much water you're using when you're showering or watering your lawn or your drought tolerant landscaping and all of that. And it detects leaks. And that's why I always want to plug it, because right after I got mine, I had a leak in my irrigation system, and it was so hidden. I would not have found it for quite a while, but I found it pretty much within hours of it starting, just because I had one of those devices. Then we have a good rebate for that as well.
Wow, so there's so many incentives to save water, get the right devices, really equip yourself. It makes you wonder why there's so many, you drive around LA and there's still so many lawns out there, and it's just one of those things, if only people knew.
Right. And that's where our survey comes in. So if you're not sure where to start, if you're not sure if
Yeah.
you need which devices you need or don't need, have us come out and do our residential survey and we will tell you.
Yeah, that was something I didn't know about before tonight. So waterefficiencysurvey.com. I just put that in the chat. That is so cool that you will go and audit and help
For
people
free.
learn. Yeah.
I
Free,
always want people to know it's for free,
free
let us come out.
people.
Just
It's
takes a couple
free.
hours of your time.
Well, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. I think everybody's got some good food for thought. Hopefully everybody learned something. I'm seeing some clapping hands. Albert, do you have any more questions?
No, I don't. But I do see lots of people that are interested now. I see the gears turning. People are like,
Yes.
"Oh, I get started now, right?"
Yes.
And for the ones that, it was like too late after the fact, yeah, maybe there's other alternatives, or you, by just taking this class, you're already equipping yourself with knowledge for other people that you may know, so that you
Mhm.
can, preempt any project that they may be working on, and you can sort of tell them, hold on, I just heard
Oh,
about this
yeah.
rebate program, right?
No, seriously, you would think it's a joke, but I tell people about this at parties, and that's how my friend did his turf rebate. It was like last year Halloween party at his
It's
house.
not just me. I'm not the only one who just
No,
talks about this casually. Social
don't
event.
be ashamed. We were at the house, and I was just like, there's so much grass here. You could get paid to take this out. This could all be, lush plants and habitat. And now his yard looks like a botanical garden. We just installed it in June and things are already growing in. Stuff survived the heat, surprisingly. You just got to really water when it's cool and water deeply to get things established. And he wasn't a plant person before at all. So you can convert your friends that don't even care either way. They will become a plant person in the process. So it's just so much fun. It just feels so good to make a positive impact on our local ecology. So thanks so much, Krista. And thanks
Absolutely.
to all of our guests for listening and staying this long. We'll
Are there
have a
any last minute
recording up.
questions anyone has? I mean, we have two great resources here. Teresa's also been fielding a lot of questions. Thank you, Teresa, for all your help.
Yes. We got to thank you in the chat. The process always seems so intimidating, but this really helped to simplify the steps. Yes, it's really not that complicated. They list out all the steps for you, and all you have to do is follow them.
We're here to help. So if you have
Yeah.
additional questions, please, feel free to reach out to me. Or as I said, there's a number of ways to contact us on SoCalWatersmart.com as well.
They will pick up the phone too. I had a couple of questions. My design didn't get approved the first time. I called and asked why. All my empty spaces that were going to be mulch, I just didn't have it labeled as mulch. So label where the mulch is going, label where the stormwater feature is, label your plants, and don't freak out. If something gets denied, just call them up. They're real people that will answer the phone and help you.
And if
We
there's any parts of the webinar today that folks were like, "Oh, I want to go back to that, totally forgot what they had mentioned," and during that part, you're welcome to go to our YouTube channel, because that's where will be the recording of the live stream. So yeah, you can always sort of check it out right there.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks Teresa and Krista and Albert. You guys are the best. We're always so happy to share this amazing
Fighting the good
information.
fight.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.